I feel the Spirit moving in me. I feel the Spirit moving in me.
Well, this has been a message that's been very appropriate for me this week. As I developed this talk, I got to experience beating myself up. Anybody else? Just as recently as Wednesday night, we had a meetup group here. Meetup is our different groups that meet all over the United States and other places I know. And they are people coming together just to be together to share. And we had a group here this Wednesday night, and it was the Unity Church of Maui meetup group, of which we have 250 members, but I've only seen about 5 of them. And the Spiritual Experiences group, and altogether there was about 20 of us. And we had a fabulous time, and we sat here in a circle, and we began by each person sharing, introducing their name and what they did and what their life was about, and a few people shared their stories. Reverend Gary and I shared that we were ministers here at Unity Church of Maui. And I have to say that part of the reason that I did this was I hoped to get the unity message out. And it was interesting because the topic for the night was surrender. And as people are sharing their surrender stories, I found myself with not too much to say and just listening. And it wasn't until Rich, who was the facilitator, looked at me and said, Reverend Blaine, what do you have to share about surrender? And I thought, well, surrender to me is about letting go. It's about being present. It's not about being attached. It's about not being attached to whatever's happening in the moment. And then I shared a little bit about unity and some of the principles that we teach. And when I was done sharing, Rich said to the group, and began it by looking at me, and said, this isn't about sharing our own agendas. This isn't about trying to convince anybody else of what we teach, or to convince anybody else to to believe what we believe. And something inside of me went wham, right? Because that wasn't really my intention. And I discovered later that other people that were there didn't think that's what I was doing, that I was just sharing my truth. But it's so interesting that my inner critic decided to beat me up about that. And then on top of that, we recorded a video this week that went out as a sort of a teaser about today. And we can look at on YouTube how many people have seen this video, right? And as of this morning, nobody had looked at it according to the calculations on the website, right? And so as soon as I got here, Joanne shared with me that she had indeed watched it. I had indeed watched it. But isn't it interesting that I chose again to beat myself up about something because I could. My inner critic was like, oh yeah, this is a perfect opportunity. I've been wanting to deal with you for a while. And I think it's so fun because, we don't have to go very far to find our biggest critic. There he is. This guy cuts me no slack often, yeah? And doesn't let me enjoy my high moments, my victories for very long before you go right into giving me a hard time about little things that I didn't say or did say or what I thought I said and what somebody else was thinking, surely. Anybody else recognize their self? Isn't that what we do? Yeah, this inner critic seems to want to punish us, almost like it thinks that by beating us up, we're going to do a better job next time. Yeah? Wow. And to me, one of the most important truths are the ones that I sometimes don't recognize. And for me, I am often inclined to forget the truth of who I am. And I sometimes, often criticize myself and don't allow myself to be in the present moment. And the truth of it is, we are given this incredible body, these incredible minds, this attachment to spirit, so we can come here and be the presence of spirit in all that we do. But our critical mind sometimes, maybe frequently, pulls on us and keeps us from being present in the moment. Anybody else? The Dalai Lama, when he came to the West, he was amazed about how rough we in the West are on ourselves and how self-critical we are. And he couldn't fathom the way that we talk about ourselves and the way that we treat ourselves. And it drove him to tears. It drove him to tears that we can be so divided against ourselves in any moment. And when we are divided against ourselves, it fragments us and keeps us from being present. It keeps us from being at home where we are when we're so busy criticizing ourselves for the silliest things. Yeah? What we do say, what we don't say, what we forgot, what we did do, what we didn't do. Seems like there's no way to satisfy the inner critic. Have you noticed? No matter what you do, even if you do what it says, it criticizes you for what you said, right? Or what you did. The Dalai Lama said, there is something about the dynamics of self-absorption or worrying about ourselves too much. That this worrying tends to magnify our suffering. Western psychology is now focusing on self-compassion because they are realizing that self-compassion helps us to be more present, helps us to be healthier, helps us to avoid depression and sadness. In the New York Times, there was an article a while back that I read, and it says, research suggests that giving ourselves a break and accepting our imperfections may be the first step towards health. People who score high on tests for self-compassion have less depression and less anxiety, and they live happier and more optimistic lives. Preliminary data suggests that self-compassion may influence how much we eat. And self-compassion may even influence our ability to lose weight. Now there's something that there's a study, there's an activity that we can do I can see this being published, can't you? We can do a workshop on self-esteem, and you come and you're going to lose weight. Because it does seem like weight gain can sometimes be associated with trying to fill something on the inside that we think isn't there, right? Many years ago, a friend and I were talking about our self-esteem and about our lives and our beings and who we are. And I said to my friend, you know, I think that if people really knew who I was, they wouldn't like me. Anybody else have that thought? You know, because I think that we become so much in conflict with this inner critic, and we think that that's really the truth of who we are. And it's just some voice that initially is trying to protect us, but it seems to get out of control and start to criticize us for everything that we do. My friend said to me, I'm really trying to be my best friend. When I heard that, I was shocked. It knocked my socks off. Something in me stood up and said, wow, I need to know this. I need to hear this. I need to be my best friend. I haven't been my best friend. In spite of what things might look like on the outside or to other people, there's been times in my life when I really didn't like myself because I listened to this inner critic, this inner voice. I like to think of it sometimes as the crazy aunt upstairs, yeah, who is nagging and complaining and yelling about every little thing. And then I decided I'm going to make a change. I'm going to make this the focus of my life to have self-confidence and self-worth and self-esteem and self-compassion. And now I'm really aware of this critical voice, and every time I hear it, I say, thank you for sharing. I hear you. And sometimes I even hear it in other people that say the same things that I'm hearing myself. Anybody hear that? And it's just, okay, I hear you. Thank you for sharing. But that's not the truth. Self-compassion is an essential component to waking up and becoming spiritually aware. Unless we are self-compassionate, we can't wake up. We can't connect with the presence of God within us if we are listening to that critic, because that critic will say that we're not. We have to have compassion in order to experience a spiritual awakening and to be spiritually aware. We can't be compassionate towards ourselves unless we are aware of our suffering. We know that awareness leads to enlightenment, right? And so when we begin to be aware of this little voice that is criticizing us, it's not a bad thing. You know, it's not another thing that you can criticize yourself for, because that little voice speaks to all of us. And what that voice is a wake-up call to say, okay, this is an opportunity for you to do things differently, to have compassion for yourself. All of our suffering stems from a false belief that we are separate from Source. If we completely knew and completely believed that we were always connected to Source, we wouldn't have anything to be afraid of or criticize ourselves for. We wouldn't have to have any suffering because we know the truth that we are connected and we could be so present all the time. Because we're being compassionate. When we are compassionate to ourselves, we are totally present in the moment. To really, really be compassionate. When we're disconnected from Source, we forget to love. When we are connected to Source, we remember the truth. That we are the presence of love. That we are one with the Source. That we can be the presence of love in this moment. Self-criticism is a thief that steals our life, your life, and energy, and causes us to suffer. It's not the truth. It's a thief that comes in the night, comes in the day, and steals our truth from us, steals our energy, steals our very life source, and causes us to suffer. You know, there's good reasons for self-examination. There's good reasons to be aware of what we're thinking and what we're feeling and what we're saying. But there aren't good reasons for criticizing how we respond and what we do, what we think. When we listen to this self-critic, it steals our well-being and condemns us to a bleak emotional existence. Self-compassion. Instead of reacting to our mistakes, imperfections, and disappointments by scolding ourselves, self-compassion empowers us to respond with kindness, understanding, compassion. The same kind of kindness and compassion that we would give to someone else if they were suffering. Self-compassion reduces anxiety, depression, stress, body shame, and the fear of failure. Self-compassion increases life satisfaction, happiness. Self-compassion increases self-confidence. Self-compassion increases optimism, curiosity, creativity. How can we truly be creative beings if we are criticizing ourselves for everything that we think and we do? That criticism diminishes our own thoughts and creativeness. Self-compassion increases our gratitude, our ability to be in this moment and to be grateful for what we have. If we're shaming and criticizing ourselves, how can we be grateful? And we know that being grateful attracts into our life more of the things that we desire, yes? The Washington Post did a while back, had a contest for the best T-shirt that anybody could make. And this is what they came up with. It says, I suffer occasional delusions of adequacy. I don't think I'd want to wear this T-shirt, but it certainly shows you the kind of things that our critical mind can focus on. Self-compassion is about freeing ourselves from suffering. Self-compassion is necessary to empower us on our spiritual journey. So, how can we have more self-compassion? I have some ideas. The first one to practice self-compassion is to connect with Source, to spend time in prayer and meditation, and just being with Source, allowing ourselves to experience Source. Even if it means going to the beach or sitting out in a garden or in our meditation chair and just being with Source. Don't have to do anything. Don't have to do anything special. Just be. Appreciate that you are one with this Source. Source is expressing itself perfectly as you. The second thing that we can do is to fully accept ourselves. Is to work on fully accepting what you are, who you are, what you have to share, what do you get to be. The next thing is to befriend your critical self, to say when this critical voice comes up and it starts criticizing what you're thinking, what you're doing, what you're saying, is just to say, oh, thank you. I like to say thank you for sharing. It's important to me that you share that. Bless you. I love you. I recognize that you are thoughts that I'm having. Thank you. You're giving me the opportunity to connect with my higher self. You're giving me the opportunity and the realization that I am suffering. And I choose not to suffer. Thanks. Yippee! All right, yeah? It's not a bad thing when we're self-critical. It just means that we have some self-compassion that we get to do. And the next thing to practice being self-compassionate is to feel your feelings. Oh, I'm feeling anxious right now. Interesting. I'm feeling mad right now. Oh, that's interesting. I'm feeling disappointed with myself or with somebody else. Oh, interesting. Okay. I used to think that feelings were the truth, right? Someone said, you might have read it, if you're feeling something, it's probably because it's real. Nah, not necessarily. Sometimes it's just a feeling. I think our feelings kind of move through us like a wave. You ever notice? Wouldn't it be fun to track your feelings for the whole day? Like I'm, and just realize they're just moving through us. That's all it is. It's just movement of a wave, and we could choose to get on that wave or not, right? Next time you feel the anger coming up, and you feel this wave coming, imagine what it'd be like just to go, wow, interesting. Here comes this wave of anger. Do I want to get in it and fight it? Yeah? Or do I just want to go with it? Let it move. It's just a wave. Someone said life happens and we get to respond to it. Feelings happen and we get to choose. You get to choose, how am I going to react to my feelings? And then bring your hurts into your heart. If there's something that is hurting, take the time. I think in meditation is a great time to take that hurt, take that feeling, and just drop it into your heart. And spend that time just feeling the hurt. And just let it rest. Hurts and feelings need to be experienced. We don't want to push them away. Because if we push them away, what happens? They're going to come back someplace else. So, and they may come up someplace that's totally inappropriate. So we want to feel them and just let them move through us. If it's possible, take them into your heart and feel them. Let them be in your heart. Surround them with love. And the last way that we can practice self-compassion is to let yourself soak in the Spirit. And just take the time just to allow yourself to feel the presence of God, of Spirit, of divine mind, whatever you want to call it, and just be with it. Just feel it. Feel the love. God is love. And let yourself just be. Just feel. I invite you to place your hands on your heart. And take a deep breath. Breathing in and breathing out. Maybe even imagine that you can take the hand of your critical self. That person that beingness that is negative or finds criticism in what you do, what you say. And just take that hand, take that energy into your heart. to say thank you. You are a teacher. You are a guide that is opening me to know the truth of who I am. I love you. You, my friend, are blessed with a beautiful life. You are powerful and wise beyond your understanding. Remember who you are. Remember who you are. I love you. Let's say this together. You, my friend, are blessed with a beautiful life. You are powerful and wise beyond your understanding. Remember who you are. I love you. And so it is.
Where I live, there are rain.